morning and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on UPRN FM 105.3 in New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. I'm Jenny Nicasio, along with my fantastic co-hosts, Sean Kelly and John
Oh,
Ventry.
thank you. Thank you.
Please share this live and just remember to comment in YouTube if you want us to answer your comments. We are broadcasting across America and beyond. We're in many different countries. Follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Roku, Rumble. We have so many places you can contact us. And make sure you go onto SoundCloud if you can't watch us all the time. You can pick up so many different shows. Tonight we have a special guest with us, Derrel Sims. He's a UFO hunter. Now he's going to be able to tell us what that means, but his career highlights are fantastic. He discovered, according to Derrel, he discovered the alien implant phenomena in 1960, later pioneered research and protocols and orchestrated the first in public surgeries and testing of alleged implants from the human body in 1995. First UFO researcher to be invited to lecture on alien implants by the AMA at a conference that actually was at the Muir Medical Center. Boy, you know what? Thinking about alien implants is really freaking me out right now. I feel like I got all this itchy parts of my body, like my fingers and my back. So I'm going.
Why is that, Jenny?
Well, because he's talking about he's an alien hunter and the implants. So I always wondered if I wake up with little marks on me. We're going to get to that too. But Derrel has in his possession the physical evidence. Now, I want to see this, Derrel. The physical evidence of alien human contact, including skin samples, DNA samples, x-rays, MRIs. Oh, my God. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring him up because this is going to be a fantastic show. I can already see that. So welcome to Chasing Prophecy, Derrel. Good to have you.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, Sean and Jenny and John. Good night, wow, crazy. This is great.
You know, I'm thinking about all the alien implants theories that are out there and stories, and it's something that I always was fascinated about because I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I'd have a mark on me, and then I'd have like this. It always looked like a splinter, and it would disappear. And I've had some really strange dreams. But go ahead, Derrel. I want to know, how in the heck did you get involved in all this alien hunting stuff? And it's amazing stuff.
3-on-1, I don't have a chance, but I'll do the best I can.
You'll be fine.
We'll be kind to you, believe me.
We'll be nice.
Okay.
Saturday night and almost a full moon, so.
Okay.
It's Tuesday night. It's Tuesday night.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm losing my mind. Okay, we won't tell that. Hi, Sean.
Well, I actually got involved in the phenomena quite by accident, so to speak, at least accidental for me. I was 4 years old, and I referred to myself as being literally a captive audience, simply because I noticed something was in my room at age 4, and when I lived on Midland, Texas, on 1005 South K Street. My mother was floored when I told her this at 94 years old. She said, "Well, why did you not tell us this when you were little? You couldn't remember all of that. It was, how could you remember all that?" I said, "Mom, I know the phone number to our place, even though it was in 1952. I said, I have a brain, it still functions. So I'm good with that." And anyway, so we lived on 1005 South K Street in Midland, Texas at the time, when I was in Texas as a child, and noticed something in my room, and I was stunned because I could see somebody was walking away from me toward the wall, and I thought, what in the world? Nobody could be in our house because our door's locked, and this was like 1952. We don't have, nobody goes into anybody's house anyway. You could sleep with the windows open if you wanted. And the whole thing just made no sense to me. And I thought to myself, well, what is that? Because he was real skinny and he had a big head in the seam only in the part of the light of the room. And as I said that, he turned around, and that was a real shock because I saw large black eyes, which were not the elliptical form like you see in Hollywood in these movies, but they were perfectly round, 1.5 inches across each. And he had a little tiny nose and a slit for a mouth, noticeable ears. And he had heard me apparently say, what is that? And the reason I think that's true is because when he turned around, I heard him speak. And that's really strange for me because I've never heard anyone talk inside my head besides me. And he said, it's awake. And I realized there's only two people in the room. He's not talking about himself. So long story short, in that event, I learned a couple of things. One thing is affected me all my life, which I love, and that is when he switched me off. The alien switches you off a lot of times so that you won't remember things. I was so freaked out by the event, I figured out, I don't even know how, I turned myself back on. And as a result, this was rather neat because I can hear what he's thinking, what he's saying in his own mind. And he doesn't know that I know because he thinks I'm still switched off. But anyway, I looked at him and I was stunned because the 4-year-old kids look at things different than adults. A guy comes into your room at midnight or 3 o'clock in the morning, whenever it was, late at night, and wakes you up like this. And I was just completely stunned. So as he turned to me, I looked at him and I was stunned at what I saw. Large black eyes, a little slit for a mouth, almost no nose. And then I noticed he didn't have any nipples on his chest. He didn't have any clothes on. He didn't have a belly button. And he didn't have a TT. So that told me right off the bat, there's something seriously wrong with this picture. I mean, if I have all these things, why doesn't he? So anyway, the whole thing was just a mystery to me in every sense of the word.
How old were you again?
4 years old.
See, that's
And how
something
many
like that happened to my son too.
And how many times has this alien approached you in your years? Does he still come around?
Great question. I've been approached. I've had approximately 10 abduction events from age 4 to 17. So for 13 years, those events went on, about 10 events during that time.
Okay. And always the same thing, or as the abductions became, as old as you got, were the tests or whatever they did to you progress?
They did progress, and it was different. The reason I call this guy the pizza delivery man, because he's a cosmic pizza delivery guy. He picks you up and delivers you, and that's his primary job. If anything else is going to happen of any notoriety, he's not the one that's going to do it. He's just a helper. That's all he really is. He just transports you and gets you back, and doesn't do a very good job sometimes.
Oh, really? Like,
oh yeah.
What happened? Where at?
Well, a good example is I've got 2,000 cases now worldwide, from India to Brazil to Japan, you name it, all over the world. And so I hear these stories and I look for this remarkable stuff that's consistent in these abduction events, which of course means that people are not making it up all over the world for 50 years. They just not going to be able to do that. So that kind of ruled out a lot of that. Number two, what I look for is difference in abduction or contact events. And many people are scared to death to tell you about the things that happened that were so far out and so far incorrect, so to speak, for their thinking. They often won't tell you. They just A case in point is a remarkably good case with a lot of good physical evidence up in Dallas, Texas. Happened in the 1990s. And I went back to visit my friend who was a surgical nurse at the time, and she looked at me and said, I didn't tell you the whole story. I said, well, tell me the whole story. What happened? She said, well, Derrel, there was, oh my God, I don't know how to say this, but I just said, just say it. She's a very honest lady. And she said, there was a pig-like creature that was inside the room there with the abductees and myself. I said, you held that from me for 20 some years? What's wrong with you? Abductees are often programmed to do that, to hide, obfuscate, or destroy their own evidence. And in her case, I said, why did you, I said, why did you not tell me this? She said, well, it was just too weird, and I just knew you wouldn't believe it. And I said, it's not up to you to decide what I get to believe or not. I said, do you realize one of the most important cases of Dr. Carla Turner involves a pig-like creature where a lady was sexually assaulted on board a craft, and there was a witness. He came forward and told the whole story. Now you've got one of the same things in our case, and you didn't even tell me for 20 years. That's why it's important to even look for differences, because some of this stuff is so unique and so important, even though it's not the same or exactly the same type little abduction story as you often would hear.
Hey, Derrel, what made you want to join the CIA, and how long were you with them?
He's asking about that. That wasn't my choice, John. Thanks for bringing up those painful memories.
Was it better or worse than being alien abducted?
Oh, now you put me in a bind. Well, what happened is I volunteered during the Vietnam War. I'm red, white, and blue. The aliens made sure of that. I'm definitely blue, black and blue from those experiences. But I'm red, white, and blue as far as the country is concerned. I love this country, and I when the call came during the Vietnam War to go, I did. And everybody else was hiding out and running, which is okay with me. I don't care. That's their business. But for me, it was a call to action, and so I took that. And intended to go to Vietnam. I was supposed to be an M60 machine gunner for Vietnam. I outshot everybody with an M60 machine gun to the point they couldn't even believe it. They made everybody quit shooting just so they could watch. Now, with a 45 caliber pistol, I could have thrown it and done better. I mean, I hated that 45 model 1911. I hated it. But anyway, the bottom line is I went to my secondary school, which was a military police school in Fort Gordon, Georgia. And while there, we were about 70 of us were picked out and told to go to a meeting. We did. And they asked these people there, asked several different questions, and most people were eliminated from the room by the answers to the questions. I sat in the back room just watching, realizing there's something wrong with this picture. And I said, you guys are all in here in suits. What? The only people who wear suits are detectives in the military police actually wear suits. They don't dress in military uniform. So they said, no, we're not CID. And I should have caught it right then. The CIA was what it was. And these were military personnel attached to the CIA and that were part of that process. Long story short, they said, you're exactly what we're looking for. And I said, something seriously wrong with these people. Why me? And he said, you're exactly what we want. And I said, well, I'm really, I'm a martial artist. And I said, I probably would not be good for what you want, and so on and so on. So I gave all the reasons why they should get rid of me. And they said, no, you don't understand. You're exactly what we want. And I said, okay. Anyway, long story short, I ended up, everybody in my entire battalion went to Vietnam except me. And then several other people that were from not in our unit. But anyway, we all were sent to, the ones that made it went to Fort Myer, and we were placed on military police duty there, TDY, temporary duty. And we went through top secret clearance work for about months. Long story short, there is one day the captain calls me in and says, "You guys have to go." And I said, "Where are we going?" He says, "I have no idea." He said, "Once every 2 or 3 years, these people call up, send you guys here, and then a black sedan pulls up and you're gone. And nobody hears from you again." And I said, "That doesn't sound good." And the captain says, "Goodbye." And I salute him and said, "Yes, sir." And a sedan pulled up. We got in the car and drove off. Ended up in a Lear jet at a little airport. And I looked around. And I saw these guys. There were several guys sitting there in these Hong Kong very fine suits. And they were looking at us like we were diseased. And I was looking at them like they're probably diseased. And we finally landed at a top secret military installation. Well, it's not really military. It's the CIA base. It's a spy training camp. That's what it is. And that's where we were assigned. And that's where I learned some of the trade craft for spying. I never was a spy, although I did some spying on the CIA, by the CIA, on some of their people for particular reasons. That's all classified. But my point is that my job there as a military police officer was to make it look like a military base. That was the main thing. And the secondary thing, I was a weapons instructor and a martial arts instructor there as well.
How long?
So that's how I got in. I had no idea what I was involved in.
Yeah. How long were you with them?
I was there for 2 years.
Okay.
And then I was activated back into the United States Army and sent to ASCOM, Korea, to finish the rest of my tour.
Okay.
Interesting. Very interesting. Let's get to the implants, and then from the implants we're gonna go into what you call the UFO hats, your seven mythology extras, whatever you have a technique or that everybody can follow.
I do.
Let's talk about the implants. Like, I saw some pictures. No, are those real pictures? I mean, because some of them are really, how did you get them? I want to, people who are listening on the radio, you won't be able to see them unless you go to the video portion, because I'm going to show some of the pictures that were sent to me. So let's talk about some of these implants. Some pictures.
Okay. The phenomenon of the implants, I would love to make this clear for your audience. And there's a lot of information about implants on the internet that's absolutely incorrect, in my opinion. I discovered implants in 1960 because I was a victim of it. And at age 12, when this happened, I realized at some point that I'm probably not the only person this has happened to. And again, what was unique about that particular situation is I went outside of my home and I knew there was going to be something waiting for me out there. And sure enough, there was the craft on the horizon, very large, and it got real big, real quick. And the next thing I know, I'm inside a circular room lying on a table. And again, the alien comes over with that large black eye and they put it next to your face and you won't remember and all that. The only problem is I switched myself back on and because people often ask this question, they say, "Why do you think you're so smart?" I said, "Well, I really don't." I said, "Well, why do you know so much about the aliens that other people don't know?" I said, "Because I overheard. I eavesdropped. I turned myself on so I could hear what they were saying. Wouldn't you like to know what they were saying when they switched you off?" I did. I switched myself back on, and that's why I learned so much about the alien, because they have obviously had a far different agenda once they abducted you, and they often wouldn't tell you what was going on. But for your audience, I would like for them to know that implants are extremely rare. Everybody gets abducted, does not get an implant. That's just not true. I must have had at least 20 people this week write me and tell me that one guy said he had hundreds of implants. That's not even true. I'll give you a hint. It's not true. And two, usually people say, well, I've got 1, 2, or 3. I've been chipped or whatever they want to call it. Well, the implants aren't chips. If you have been, quote unquote, chipped with a spying device, that sort of thing, that's a corporation or the government. That's not alien.
Okay.
And so when I did so that's how I discovered the implant, was when they put one in my nose. And anyway, one guy called me. Yeah, we have a good picture here. Thank you for putting that up. That's an implant. If you'll look in between the next to the bone of the large toe there, you'll see this an implant in this person's foot. And what's so interesting about that is this is the wife of a doctor in Brazil.
Wow,
That's in her foot. It's about 1.5 inches long. Very unusual. Never seen anything like it. And the doctor was an abductee as well. Remember the first thing I told you about the alien when I experienced him in my age 4?
Mm-hmm.
Abductees tend to destroy, hide, obfuscate, ignore their own evidence. The doctor himself, I asked him to take these x-rays of his wife's foot because her case was so interesting to me. And guess what? He says, took the x-ray. What's unusual about it? I said, you're a doctor and you can't see that?
Oh, God.
He's an abductee. He can't see it because he's not supposed to see it. And when I pointed it out, he said, how in the world could I have missed that? I said, good question. I said, you're programmed. I said, if you've been near a UFO, been near an alien, seen a UFO up close, even farther away, it's very possible and probable that you've already been programmed. And I'll talk about programs in a moment. But the bottom line is that an implant is actually installed in someone for a particular reason. They're, like I said, they're quite rare. And I look at hundreds of x-rays every year, hundreds of them. And most of them do not show an alien implant. Yes, many of them show objects inside somebody, from BBs to pencil lead and all kinds of things that people forgot when they were kids. But so I've learned how to determine a lot of this stuff. And I use a cardiovascular surgeon and a brain surgeon up in Santa Monica were present when one of our implant cases, which we did, and we brought some MUFON people in to watch the surgery. And this particular guy had a metal object in his shin, and a magnet you could hold a magnet on the outside of it, and the magnet would just sit there. And because the object was ferrous. But I told the doctor and the brain surgeon, they said, what do you think? And it looked very interesting. It looked like the AOL symbol. It's a perfect triangle with a little dot in the middle. It looked just like the AOL symbol. And I said, I call it the AOL or implant. And yeah, we laughed. And they said, well, what do you think it really is? And I said, it's not an implant. I said, this guy's a bona fide abductee. He's got 7 scoop marks down his leg. No question, he's an abductee. No question. That is not an implant.
You said 7 what? I couldn't get that last word after.
Scoop marks. Scoop marks are one of the telltale signs that you'll see more often on people than quote unquote an implant. These are scooped out areas that look like a dermatological scoop mark from your doctor. The doctor, sometimes if he sees it, will ask you, when did you get the dermatological scoop? In other words, he thinks a doctor did that. Well, he's partly correct. They're actually scoop marks or collections of sample of your skin on purpose, because implants that we have found have been wrapped in your own surface skin. That scoop mark, in other words, that biology. Now, that's rather incredible. I'll give you a good reason why. A Nobel laureate told us one time, he said, Mr. Sims, if you can replicate that biology that you found surrounding the implant, if you can replicate that in a laboratory, you may have a Nobel laureate find right now. That's why do you think that is, Doc? He says, it's simple. He said, these objects were hidden inside the body, foreign objects that turned out to be meteoric in origin, wrapped in the person's own skin in a proteinaceous coagulum, a composite of biology surrounding it, attached to it, to a nerve supply. He said, the thing seems to be communicating, so to speak, or somebody's using it. And I said, that's correct. He said, that type of biological containment is so effective. He said, organ donor rejection would be passé if you could replicate that in the lab. And I said, well, doctor, I was born at night and I was born in Texas, but it wasn't last night. He said, what do you mean? That's what laboratory do you think I should send that sample to? He said, not one. I said, thank you. Like I said, in Texas, but not last night.
That's funny. I
That's
like that
amazing.
one. So, real quick, you said you saw the gray, the one dude with the big eyes. Now, I hear since doing this show for the last 4 years, something about reptilians. Have you ever mentioned it, seen them, or do you just specifically work with the guys with the big eyes?
No, I've had several experiences in my 10 events. The second major, that's not true, the third major event, we moved to New Mexico, in Mayhill, New Mexico. And the remarkable thing in that was my dad was a Baptist minister, and he was building a parsonage for the small church there. So we lived in the basement of the church until we could get the parsonage finished. And believe it or not, most people probably have heard of this, or seen it on a movie, but never for real. But we had an outhouse, outdoor bathroom, which was just a little square little room with a hole in the floor. Basically, you sit down there, and that was your stool, so to speak. So I went out to the bathroom that night, when normal, a perfect night, just 100 yards at the most from the parsonage area. And as I walked out, I used the bathroom and I shut the door. And as I shut the door, there was a little gray alien standing there looking at me. It just stuns you when you see them. You're not ready for that at all. Just not ready. And anyway, the next morning, after I was brought back, and but the next morning, I noticed side effects from that abduction. One of the side effects is I was out doing something rather strange for me. I love animals. I love insects. We've rescued more animals than most people have ever seen in their life, literally. I mean, we rescued a Bengal tiger out of an apartment complex one time in Houston. So my daughter's still doing this in Scotland, rescuing animals. But my point is that that morning I was out catching grasshoppers and pulling the heads off of them. Now that's not like me at all. I don't go kill animals or insects just to be mean. I didn't, and I'll bet you 100 of them lined up there.
Did you ever see the praying mantis type ET?
That's my point.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
When I finally picked up one of these grasshoppers, and I started to grab his head, and then I thought, I got it real close to my face, and I said, oh no, it's the wrong insect. The insect I was looking for had a triangular head. It was a praying mantis.
Oh, wow.
That was the one that got me.
What is this picture for people who cannot see it? What
we're looking at here is a hand of someone that's been actually been touched by the alien, or they sometimes the alien will grab you by the arm or by the hand, or you'll grab them by the arm to go with them or do whatever they tell you to do. And what most people don't understand, if you've been abducted or in contact, there's evidence on you, around you, or in you. And in this case, the evidence is on the person. If you've touched one of these alien entities, often there will be a physical fluorescence that will show up on you. It's like the alien sweat, and it's when it sweats on you, it penetrates your skin subdermally on contact. It will literally, you can't wash it off. You can't get it off. If you can, don't call me because you're wasting my time. This stuff won't come off. It'll finally fade away within 48 hours to 2 weeks later.
Well, tell them how you discovered how to find that stuff.
The way you find it, it was in my book, Alien Hunter, Evidence and Light. It started in 1992. I was working with an abductee. My senior investigator, Dale Musser, an engineer, and myself were working with her. And she was I say this because I want people to know that abductees aren't just little housewives and little carpenters and little whatevers. There are all kinds of people out there. And she happened to be a millionaire. And she's not the only millionaire case we've got in Houston. I guarantee you that. I can tell you 3 of them right offhand. Anyway, I was talking to her and I said, absolutely beautiful woman, striking. Her beauty is absolutely amazing.
You got her phone number?
She told me not to give it to you. She told me to only to give it to Sean, not to give it to
you. Thank you, Derrel. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to help you out here. So the story basically is I looked at the lady and I said, may I check you over with a black light? And she said, what do you mean? I said, would like to look at your exposed skin, your neck, under your hair, your your neck and so on, and your arms. And she said, well, of course. She said, what are you looking for? I said, I don't know, but I suspect we're only getting a third of the evidence. We need to be looking in the infrared, ultraviolet, besides the visible light, which is obvious, cuts, scars, and bruises, and so on. But why aren't we looking in the infrared and ultraviolet and X-ray? If you look in X-ray, you're going to find implants and things done to people. You're going to look with MRIs, you're going to get a really detailed report on that one. And if you look with ultraviolet light, you're going to be amazed at some of the things you find. Okay, case in point, a MUFON investigator, really good, Chuck Modlin and his wife.
Yeah, no, Chuck.
They're good people, wonderful people. They came here. He stayed for about a month and wanted to see kind of what we do and how we did it down here. And one of my abductees got abducted while he was here, and he was beside himself when I said, well, we'll check her for fluorescence and so on. And we did at the Houston UFO Network. And when we did, now this is funny because Chuck is the straight-laced and this tough scientific approach you've ever seen. He was literally shaking like this, holding the camera. We got these blurred pictures, blurred film of the fluorescence on this lady. He said, I've never seen anything like it before. Oh my God, this is incredible. This is fantastic.
He's about your size too.
Oh, he's bigger than I am. He's quite a guy. He's
they built
SEAL and all that.
Yeah, they built that fallout shelter in the middle of the desert.
They did.
And went to live there. Yes. Are they still out there in Arizona?
Sometimes they are. I think they're back in back in at home now. But anyway, that was that was so funny that I thought, man, we're going to get the best film footage. Who better to take the film footage of a person with getting fluorescence on them? Wow, this will be perfect. So I gave him the camera and I pulled the backside out and everything. And you see it. Excuse me, this blurry, this blurry film. I couldn't believe it. Goodness.
You all right there, Derrel, man?
Oh, I'll tell you, I've had a phlegm in my throat for 2 days, and no, I'm not sick. I'm not got a cold. Nothing at all. It just
a new strain of COVID.
Nah, it's a strain of Derrel, I think.
But what made you think to use a black light? Was that part of your CIA training?
No.
Most people wouldn't think to do that.
You're right. You're absolutely right, John. The reason I use when you start studying these cases and you realize these people are not all making this stuff up, and when they tell you things like, I felt like I was being scanned, but there was no equipment around. Well, how do they scan you with no equipment? Because the alien sees with that black eye patch in infrared, ultraviolet, visible light, and X-ray at the same time. He's looking for implants too,
Wow.
not just ones that he may have been part of.
So what do these implants do? What's their purpose? Are they tracking them? Are they just trying to get like images from the body or see how the body's functioning? So what are they?
It's to make it easier. I think let's start if I may, with what the implants are not.
Okay.
They're not tracking devices.
Okay.
They're not transponders.
So what are they?
We know they're not tracking devices because they already know where you're at. They caught you and they put an implant in you.
Well,
so they know where you're at.
Well, not all the time. People
they know how to come back.
They tend to know where in 99% of the cases they know where you're at. Now, one case, a documented case we have where the guy was believe it or not, in Pennsylvania, moved to Texas, down here in Houston, very rapidly. And apparently that particular group, they scanned the top part of the United States, the top area that involved Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. When these two guys went on a trip, this is an incredible case, involves an implant. They went on a trip together. They hadn't seen each other in years, did not know that both of them were abducted. Neither one of them knew. They didn't know to tell each other. They went up looking for gold up in the Northwest. On the way back, they thought, there you go. They thought there was a big accident somewhere on the highway down there outside Colorado Springs, because they saw these red lights and blue lights and on the highway, and it was in the middle of the night, and they thought, well, what in the world? There must be something serious going on. As they rolled up there in the pickup close to the lights, they realized it's not a police car. These are not cops.
Mm.
And whoever's approaching the car, these are not highway patrol. So the aliens were waiting on them. This is amazing. Now, the amazing thing is they were extremely excited to see Dale, my senior investigator, because they could not find him. They lost him after they abducted him way up in Pennsylvania, and he disappeared for like 11 years.
Wow.
And so here he is. They caught him again, and they're like, yay, we got you back, but they didn't know where he was at. Now, that was really unusual. So it may be that they have a particular tract of area that they search, or I don't know. That's just a guess. I don't know. But so Dale came back, and the interesting thing is they got picked up in the event. They're not supposed to remember anything, and they don't. And what they do remember is they're now in Dalhart, Texas, not in Colorado Springs, Colorado. They're in Dalhart, Texas, and the wrong guy is driving the truck. Remember I told you the little guys made mistakes and they do. They put your clothes on inside out, backwards, things you would never do. So the wrong guy's driving the truck and are in Dalhart, Texas. And he looks over at Dale and says, did you see that elk? An elk is a screen memory. It's usually an animal form that they will often use to make you think. The key is large black eyes. And that's what they were most noted for.
Who was that one guest we had on where the hunter, or what did we talk about where the hunter saw elk? Remember?
Yeah,
that was one of our shows.
That was when we were talking about missing 411.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah, you know what? Going back to the elk, do you maybe think that these, when they take the elk, that they're shapeshifters? They're just making themselves look like elk, and they're not really elk.
Very good question, because this comes up a lot. What are they? I mean, they will often describe themselves, especially to children, as Casper, the friendly ghost.
Okay.
But you notice the large black eyes.
Mm-hmm. I just wondered, because on the missing 411 UFO connection, they're hunters looking for elk, and what better way to lure them in is to shapeshift into an elk?
Well, if I may, I will use a difference in wording here. from my point of view, and I've been in the field a lot, and this is what I do for over 50 years now. And I don't think, I think shape-shifting exists, but I don't think that's what they're doing here.
Okay.
I think what they're doing is creating an image in your head of what they want you to think.
Okay.
The reason I know this,
that's okay.
when I was 4 years old, he came next to me and put his large black eye there and transformed my visual imagery of him into a clown. Many
Oh.
abductees have clown
Oh.
phobias and they don't know why.
Not a
And
clown.
I kept shaking my head, no, 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 no.
I don't
Because
blame
again,
you.
I'm still awake. I turned myself back on, and I knew what he was doing. I knew he was trying to make me believe that I had a dream of a scary clown and nothing else happened.
That was
I'd kill him.
that was the
I would kill
original.
that alien.
That
I
was
would
the
destroy it.
that was the original Pennywise from It.
There you go.
I
There you
don't
go.
care. I would have killed the sucker.
Yeah.
I hate clowns.
How-
Many of them, many
despise-
people do. Many hate
Darrell,
them.
how accurate is this behind me compared to what you saw? How accurate is that?
The alien?
Yeah, it's about 4 feet tall.
Yeah,
let's say.
I've been in your home. Absolutely amazing place, by the way. I'll tell you. I know you willed that to me in your will, and so and I gladly receive it.
I plan to outlive you, but go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. The answer to your question, I will say it this way. I tell my abductees if I could take a photograph of the alien and your abduction at the same time, and then have you draw a picture of him, there would be a difference. And I said, what you don't understand is that you are so programmed. You really don't know what the alien actually, literally, totally looks like. And I said, I know you think you do, but you don't. I'll give you a case in point here. Remember that lady I told you about in Dallas that was so excellent and her case was wonderful? I was speaking to a support group up there for a therapist, and she had a group of abductees she wanted me to speak to, and I did. And as I was there, I think it was 1992, I think, and there was a knock on the door, and it was my friend. She came in, and right in the middle of the support group meeting while I was addressing these people in the support group, she walks over and says, I wanted to give you these. And I said, okay. And I look at them, and they're 2 8x10 color pictures. This is before photoshopping existed, of aliens. My teeth like fell out of my mouth. One of them is of a praying mantis. One of them, and there's several in the picture, but one of them is a very clear picture of a gray. He does not look like your guy back there.
No. What does he look like?
He looks similar, but not the same. He had a protuberance on his head, like his head went up and there's a big, like a bump, and his head goes back. His very large head. The eyes were elongated, longer, much longer, and pointed. They go more upward, and they have a very menacing look to them. They really do. But there are different flavors of these guys, and we could spend a whole night just.
Darrell, the one thing makes me think about that is to have the eyes, like you said, wrap around. That's a sign of prey. Predators' eyes are in the front, like us.
Yeah.
But they need the ability to see all around what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound like a predator, a dangerous one. That sounds like one that needs to know what's coming.
Well, I have to again, if we want to talk about that, and I'm happy about it. The alien, in my opinion, the 7 flavors: the little gray, tall gray, the praying mantis, the Nordic, the Bigfoot. In my opinion, they're all 7 models. They're not 7 aliens. They're models, like you would see in a Chevrolet company. You see a Chevette, which would be the small alien. It ain't worth much. These Corvette Stingrays on the other end. That's your Nordic guy. He's going to be worth something. And if you look at that, if you where Janine talked about using your hats, this is where my 7 hats comes into play. You have to get rid of your UFO hat, and I mean that respectfully because I've got one too, but it's been fooled before. And if you use those other hats, you're not going to get fooled, because you're going to think differently 7 different ways. And your views may not even agree with each other, but you're going to get 7 different points of view, which are really important. So from my perspective, the alien, we're looking at 7 models. We're not looking at 7 races of alien. There may be 1 million races of aliens out there. I'm not saying that. I'm telling you what these guys are is not that. You're looking at a Trojan horse.
Okay, we'll go through the 7 hats.
But
Okay.
Derrel, do they shapeshift, like Jen said, into these others, or this is only the 7 they show you?
These are the 7 primary ones that they use for, how shall I say it? The 7 primary ones they use for contacting you, for dealing with you. If you use the if you use my model as an example, and my model is simply that of, and the best way to say this, my model is for it's to use look at the alien, the models that we're looking at, and just simply not how should I say that? Not accept them as quote unquote alien. They're alien because they said so. Okay, somebody said they're aliens from other planets. Okay, but they have a UFO, and like one lady said, she said, "Well, that's how do you know they're from other worlds?" She said, "Well, they are." And I said, "I'm not calling you a liar. I'm not questioning your veracity or knowledge. I'm simply asking you a question you need to ask yourself. How do you know that that's an alien from another planet?" Well, they have to be. And I said, now, wait a minute. Have to be is not the same thing as is. How do you know it's an alien from another planet? Well, because they have a flying saucer. I said, I may have a Learjet. What is that? Does that mean that I made a Learjet?
Well, our government has flying saucers too, I guarantee.
Well,
you.
of course they do. I said, so my point to you is, I said, well, they're smarter than you because they made them. I said, if you have 3 fingers and no opposing thumb, how do you make a UFO?
Slowly.
I said, I think you're missing the whole point. I said, sweetie, I said, I'm not attacking you. I'm asking you to think differently. That's all. Just use a different thinking. I said, the thinking will tell you that he didn't make the UFO. Somebody else did. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm in total agreement with that. Somebody else made the craft that he's flying. And in fact, we know a lot about it. The craft is interactive. We know that we've got 3 pieces of UFO. 2 of them have been verified in universities. The third one, we've got film of the UFO under where the object was expelled. So it's identical to the other 2, which were 30 years apart in each of their findings. So we're pretty confident that we're going to be consistent on that. But in my view, these beings, if you look at the DNA of every one of these guys, the DNA comes from planet Earth. If they came from another planet, why are they using reptiles? Why are they using praying mantises? I'm going to take a wild guess here, but where would you get Nordic DNA? Maybe Norway? Probably. I'm guessing here. But you got to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to see this stuff. I mean, it's in your face. Well, Bigfoot is, I said, my thesis is so solid, in my opinion. When they did the DNA study on it, some friends said, you need to take some of your DNA work you got and put it with Dr. Melba Ketchum and let them use your stuff. And I said, I've already talked to them. They've got plenty of DNA. And I told them I'm not a Bigfoot guy, and I don't have a horse in that race at all. I said, it doesn't mean I don't know anything about them. It doesn't mean I don't have any evidence. I have urine sample and a fingernail from an adolescent. So I think I probably know something. So my point is that when the DNA testing was over, it simply supported my thesis. So how does that happen? First of all, they found that the DNA was a simian, an ape-like creature from planet Earth. How does that happen? Apes probably come from planet Earth, I'm guessing. And the second thing they found, it was the second thing they found, that was the nuclear DNA, the mitochondrial DNA, the female DNA in this Bigfoot was modern human woman. So how do you get modern human woman mixed up with the Bigfoot from another planet? Well, probably he's not from another planet. And two, that's called transgenics. Transgenics is a very old, ancient art.
Splicing?
It's been around. It's in the Bible. It's mentioned in different ancient texts. The Workins, the Sumerians, and others. They know of it. They know it's been done. They just don't know who did it.
Right.
But that's not my point. Somebody else did it. Is my whole point. Somebody made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured these 7 species, the models, to interact with us to convince us these are aliens from other worlds. And as I told my Native American friend who died recently, Cliff Bahudi, I said, Cliff, tell me who the gray alien is. Well, they're the star people. I said, don't feed me that bunch of garbage. Don't talk to me like I'm white. I said, I'm as much native as you are. I said, so who are they? He said, oh, those are the ant people. I said, why didn't you say that to begin with? Why are you trying to feed me something? The star people, they come down from the stars. They do. I said, just because somebody comes down, that's like me going to the airport and say, the star people are landing at our airport every day, 300 and 400 carloads at a time. It's just not, it doesn't make any sense. We know a lot about where they're located. We know this. We know it from NASA. We know it from JPL. I was the only person in the whole entire UFO field invited to the JPL program called the Cassini Project. Cassini was the first nuclear-powered rocket we sent into space, and they sent me an invitation from one of my doctors. I said, "What? Why are they doing it? This is crazy." This was out at JPL at their offices and in Pasadena, California. So I went, of course, and amazing presentation, brilliant presentation. And when it was over, they said, Mr. Sims, they asked, has anybody got any questions? And of course, they knew I wouldn't have any because this thing was so far above my pay grade that, it was deep. And I said, I have a question. They said, yes, Mr. Sims. And I said, the JPL is responsible for putting these projects together, non-manned programs, before NASA gets involved to put a manned program. And you did that beautifully on the moon, and then we left the moon, and then we went over to Mars. You're doing the same thing on Mars. Wow, fantastic. Everybody's so impressed. We're proud of what you've done. I want to know what you did, what you found in the Jovian system or Saturn or near there that made you drop, for all practical purposes, your work on the moon, on Mars, and head off with this first nuclear packaged spacecraft to the Jovian system in that area. And you could have heard a pin drop in that entire, there must have been 2,000 people in there. You could have heard a pin drop on the floor. And all of a sudden he says, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We've got free drinks and gifts for everyone in the back. And he just looked at me and sneered,
So, Derrel, where are they located? Under the ocean, in mountains?
Take the hint, the first hint, the Cassini Project. Where is Cassini? Oh, that's one of the rings of Saturn.
So they're on Saturn.
And Norm Bergstrom, a scientist at NASA, wrote a book called Ring Makers of Saturn. I wonder if there's it's a big stretch, I'm sure, but I'm just guessing here. And guess where that rocket is flying around and checking everybody out in the Jovian and around Saturn. Why would they name it the Cassini missile? Because that's the Cassini ring where they're sitting right now. According to Norm Bergstrom, before he passed away, he wrote a remarkable book called Ring Makers of Saturn. Costs you several $100 to buy, or you can get it free on the internet if you just shop around a little bit. And in that, he said he wrote the book Ring Makers of Saturn. He said because they are the ones making the rings, and they're right there in the Cassini ring.
No, I wanted to go back to, you said they were here on Earth and had human DNA. That's why I said, where are they when they're on Earth? Is what I meant.
Okay, so the question is, they're in different locations. I think they are. My biggest statement for the last 40 years is based on two reasonings. Number one is Native American. Cliff Mahooty says, what nationality are you? I said, well, I said 45% of people taken in these abduction events are Native American, Indian, Irish, and Celtic. Scottish, they are. And I said, I'm Scottish, Irish, and Native American. And
What's out?
It's what tribe? And I said, our enemies used to call us the Cherokee. I said, they're so stupid, they still do. I said, we are the Anayunwiya. We're the principal people. All Native American tribes call themselves the unique ones or the special ones, the first people, and so on and so on. It's just a deal. But anyway, I said, when you listen to the Native American tales and the history, you can learn quite a bit about the alien phenomena just simply by listening. One of the things they'll tell you, and when I was on a TV program several years ago, they said, where do you think the aliens are actually? Why don't we not seeing UFOs? 500 of them come down every hour, all these abductions. That's because a lot of them are not coming from the sky. They're coming from the water.
Yeah.
I said, okay. Most Native Americans know that know anything about their own history. UFOs traverse underwater in the rivers and in the Great Lakes and so on, and ocean and so on, different places. I've been to done investigations in Puerto Rico, and everybody in Puerto Rico will tell you they come out of the water, they come out of the lakes there, and so on. I mean, this is something we've known for a long time, or suspected anyway, and I think that's a big truth. I think that's the best place to hide without anybody locating you. And when the Tic Tacs showed up and things like that, where did they go? Underwater. Sure.
So also, I'm sorry.
There are other places too. In my opinion, they're also located on the moon. According to, again, I'm not talking UFO people. I'm talking scientists at NASA. You can look this up on the internet, and the NASA scientist, he's the top NASA geologist, Farouk El-Baz is his name. He's a NASA geologist, and he stated, he said, one of the amazing things we found on the moon, isn't that interesting that no one ever showed a photograph of any of it? It's one of the things we found were enormously tall spires all over the moon.
Yeah.
They don't seem to be made out of the same mara or sand or materials that we're looking at. He said, and some of them are higher than the tallest buildings we have, sometimes 4 and 5 times.
Well, they can stay there on the moon.
Exactly. So I wonder why none of those pictures showed up on the moon photographs.
Well, they probably are on them. I know Mike Barra was on the show a couple of times, and he had shown pictures of different kinds of creatures or
they scrub them out
on the moon. What's that, John?
They scrub them out of the pictures.
Of course they do. We have one of my abductees actually saw them do that right here at NASA.
They scrub them out of the
they remove them from the pictures.
But why? Sure. Why would they remove them? Why?
Because there aren't any aliens on the moon. Don't you know that?
But why won't they? What? Why? What?
Because there aren't any.
Well, it's the same reason when they find bones of giants that are 10, 12 feet tall, that the Smithsonian will get rid of those, and they don't tell you about them.
I wonder why
it all has to fit a certain box that they made.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Before we get off this program, ask me about giants.
Okay.
I got a big one for you. Got a big giant for you. This is
besides,
you're gonna like
this. Besides the UFOs, hiding in the waters, which I totally believe.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't water give them more energy, more power to their crafts and stuff?
I don't know that. I can't prove that. As a former police officer and private investigator in the state of Texas, I relegate my information to what I know, what I think, and what I believe is all different. And so I tell people what in other words, I like to tell you things I can go to court with.
Yeah.
In other words, if I have to walk in, uh, this I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but a ufologist, very famous one, told me one day, he said, well, me and Bud Hopkins are doing all this research. And I said, well, actually, that's not true. Bud's doing all the work. You're just riding off of his coattail.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying you don't do anything.
Yeah.
You're just a good spokesman.
Yeah. I mean, for Sean's question there, I mean, they have been seen hovering over water, kind of sucking it up. Maybe they use the hydrogen, who knows? But, in order to move so quickly through water and space, they've got to be doing something else around the skin of it with positive and negative,
yes,
neutrons, so that you could just, as you move, it moves everything out of your way. And that's what.
Nothing in the way. There's nothing.
Positive and negative would move it right out of the way. That's
absolutely
probably
excellent idea. That's it's really good.
We have to take a short break to mention our sponsors. Our sponsor is Carnation. Thank you so much, Carnation, for sponsoring the second hour of Chasing Prophecy. Make sure you get some Carnation's essentials.
Derrel's drinking Carnation right there. I know.
They also make, Jenny. They also have a brownie mix.
They do.
Yes, they do. And
when did they get the brownie? When did they get the brownie mix?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to buy you one and give it to you.
I haven't seen any in the store.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you see it at?
Shop and Save.
Shop and
in
Save.
One of the end
well,
caps.
Giant Eagle don't have it because I would have seen it by.
That's a cuss word in my book now.
Okay, we won't talk about Giant
Eagle. So Derrel, with the Native American stories, do you know those two rangers that they became kind of famous?
The Navajo Rangers.
Yeah, those two guys. Yeah.
Yeah, Stan and John. Yeah, I know them both. In fact, one of them texts me all the time. He texted me the other day. He said, "Happy birthday!" And I said, "Only an Indian would say something like that to somebody like me." And we'd laugh and call each other names and stuff. And it's just we get tribal occasionally.
What's your best story? Yeah, what's your best Native story of a case? Anything really weird or strange?
Let's see. One of my abductees is Cree Indian. She's up in Canada, and of course the COVID thing is just absolutely just destroyed a lot of our work up there simply because we can't get up there. And you can't do our work. And I mean, this is just terrible what they've done to those folks. So we've got some great cases there, implant cases and other things. You always hear these stories. Well, all the Native people believe. No, that's not true. Native people are as different as Texans are from New Mexicans to Pennsylvanians. They're kind of like the same, but they ain't. Yeah. And if you go to England, I guarantee you the Welsh, the Scots, the Irish, all of them are totally different. And if you speak with that accent, you are going to get vilified places. And I mean, it's just the way it works. So we have a number of cases that are in Canada we love to pursue, but with COVID is absolutely, and that Justin Trudeau is absolutely a tyrant, in my opinion.
Yep.
It's breaking my heart.
Do you think they're ever going to actually come forward and say, "Okay, we're aliens"? Ever?
No, ma'am.
Now, why don't you think that?
Well, 50 years of history, first of all, actually more. But the old statement, "Why don't they land on the White House lawn?" And all that. I said, when they flew over
it's restricted airspace.
That's when they flew over the Capitol building in 1952. I said they did that for a week.
Well, didn't Valiant Thor do that?
I actually have the flight logs from the pilots that actually flew up against the UFOs in 1952. Okay. I have those logs and their testimony.
I would love to.
And not only that, but we had 3 roving anti-aircraft batteries on the ground, because the true story is we thought we were being attacked by aliens from other planets.
Yes.
That's the truth.
Well, how come that really? Why did they? I don't understand because I've seen the old clippings from newspapers.
Because all they saw, all it was really up there was a bunch of ionized air and light. It's just your mind playing tricks on you.
Well, they said it was heated versions of like car lights. The heated version threw the car
Yeah.
lights into the sky, and that's what it was. And it
And
was.
that's why they had 3 roving anti-aircraft batteries
Yeah.
roving around the
And
Capitol.
and President Truman issued the shoot 'em down order, which still stands. If you can't talk them down, shoot them down. So the first thing I thought of is, well, I'm the pilot. How do I communicate with them? You know, if they don't speak English, how do I
They
ask?
speak Wachi or something else.
Yeah, yeah.
But the true story behind one of the pilots who came forward and on film and told the whole story, and I have his flight logs. He was there that night. He did the job. When he got back, he and his co-pilot were put in 2 different rooms. Well, there were 4 of them. They put them in different rooms. They said, "Now what happened? Tell us exactly." And which, of course, as typical military people, we do what we're supposed to. We told them the truth. And after that, they looked at those men and said, "No, you didn't. Now here's what happened."
Yeah.
And you're going to sign an agreement, and they place a document in front of them, says exactly the same thing. Because that's exactly what happened, isn't it, Lieutenant? And he said, we all were threatened. He said, everybody stayed in but me. He said, I gave up my commission. And he said, nobody threatens me, sends me up against something like that, and then turns around and tells me I didn't see anything and lie about it. He said, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
He said, so I got out and became a pilot for a major airline. And when I finally retired, he said, that's why I contacted you. He said, I want to tell the whole story. And he did. All of it.
Derrel, can in hot pursuit, can a police car or helicopter enter a reservation in hot pursuit, or they're not allowed?
That's a real touchy subject. I had one of the things I do as a private investigator is bounty hunting, and this group called me. It said, and they said, we need for you to go get this guy for us. I said, why is that? And he said, because you're native and so is he. And I said, okay, well, what's the problem? He said, well, we think he's on the reservation, and we can't touch that. And I said, I understand. And I said, okay, that's real touchy ground. I said, it's highly likely he's not on the res. It's likely because of charges against him, which were 2 major federal charges, automatic weapons and drugs. And I said, it's highly likely he's already left the state. In fact, we found a guy up in Indiana and brought him back and got him. But when you talk reservations, first of all, there's two things. There's a state reservation and there's a federal reservation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Federal, the answer is in most cases, no, you're not going anywhere. You're going to go up there and ask them. And if they want to, they may let you in. Likely they won't, but they might. On the state reservation, the rules are a little different. But the point is, in my case, I just developed a couple of confidential informants, which were relatives of his, and I knew he wasn't on the res anyway. Yeah. But I got the job and got paid more for it because he was native.
Well, you know what my thought was? There's a UFO. It's a scout ship. It's not the big one, and it's picked up. And we have helicopters. A jet. If I was the UFO, I would go onto the reservation knowing they can't pursue. I mean, they're not stupid. They're smart.
we have ways of dealing with that, and it's not a problem if it lands on the reservation. It isn't going to make any difference.
Yeah,
it isn't, because first of all, we weren't there. You didn't see it, and you do like your job, right?
Yeah.
You do like your happiness.
Yeah.
And can we contribute to that in some way?
I have a question, and I ask every ufologist, MUFON person on our show, And I'm going to ask you, why is the government not telling us everything? What is so secretive about them just keeping it back?
Well, I think we got half half of the I'd say half. I don't know that to be true. I'm guessing. There's a good portion of people in the industry, in the intelligentsia, that do want this stuff out. That's why you're seeing a lot of it show up in Congress. They're leaking records.
Okay, I want to ask you this. I'm going to show you something.
Wait, don't leave this point yet.
The other half,
It's still
the
his.
other half is they're not. These other guys are not going to do it. Not now, not ever. And if they're in charge and in power, they're never going to give you anything. That, as I told Nick Pope when we were in a presentation about the federal government, and I said, Nick, I said, you can tell anybody you want to about anything you want about what you did in MOD. I said, but you're talking to ex-CIA here.
Mm-hmm.
So don't play those games with me. I said, I know better. I said, I'm telling you that I said, we have been waiting for you guys for 70 years to show up with a congressional record, armed guards, and the whole 9 yards. Do all of it. We've got a story that's so good. You're going to love it. It's better than the air balloons of Roswell. It's a lot better than that. But I guarantee you're going to buy it. And it's not true either. I said, listen to me carefully. I said, I'm ex-CIA. When I was in, what do you think our job was to do? You hired us to lie to you and to the world. We did. Yep. It's a weather balloon. haven't you figured that out?
So now you got the Pentagon with their group AARO, and I just read, I guess it's been out for a year or so. There's a lab called the Enigma Lab that's trying to take over all of the UFO reporting, and they've approached MUFON with a huge dollar figure to take your reports to MUFON.
Follow the money.
The money, yeah. And you guess what? Last week, MUFON's board meeting was in D.C. That doesn't happen.
I wonder why that happened.
Yeah.
I love MUFON. I love a lot of people in MUFON. I'm not a politician, and I never get political with them. But it's your organization. Do whatever you want. But you guys were infiltrated long ago by the FBI and others, and now they're doing it with money.
I think what the offer is going to be, we're going to take this over, and that'll push MUFON into the fringes, or you can join us. The reports that come in through you come to us, and a lot of people think they do already, and then you stay relevant as MUFON and the Pentagon, because we're going to do it without you, and you're going to be like NICAP.
2,000 cases worldwide. MUFON doesn't have any of them.
Yeah. It blows my mind, because like people like Bob Lazar, and they don't get any, no one believes them, or if they do believe them, they shut them off, and they shut them down.
I totally agree with you. And whenever you're in possession of evidence like I have, like Lazar has seen, and other things, you're going to have these people. In Lazar's case, in his case, it's been pretty sketchy in some respects. It has, and questionable. And I mean, there are a lot of things that are weird about his case.
Yeah,
but the fact is, he's also telling the truth.
I think he is, but I think he is, and I think that it's scary as hell. And I just can't understand why no one ever, they shut them down, or they'd come out missing. Some of these UFOlogists, they report, and they come out and they're whistleblowers, and all of a sudden they're gone, or they committed suicide, or no one can find them. It's why? I don't understand. What's the big deal? Let us know about it. Are they afraid that we're going to panic?
Well, I was recently approached by a man at the Quinault reservation a year and a half ago, I guess. And I was speaking out there, and he listened to my presentation, and he's a very high-tech guy, very high-tech. And I said, why are we talking? he said, well, he said, he said, well, I've listened to you. And he said, I don't think you're afraid of anybody. And I said, well, that may be stupid, but I understand your viewpoint. He told me you're a 4th-degree black belt and you do all this and you're macho and everything. I said, well, if only my wife believed all that. And we laughed. And he finally says, this is really hilarious. He says, why are we talking? Why are you? I'm nobody. Go talk to the MUFON people and all these other folks. And he says, you're the only person that inaugurated contact between the alien and us, and it worked. And I said, that is true. I said, it happened in 1992. It's called a double mass abduction of 8 people in 2 states and several cities. And it's a case beyond understanding. And I guarantee you, you know what the amazing thing about that case? All of the 7 aliens we talked about, all the 7 models were lined up in front of a guy sitting in a big chair who was in charge of all of them. And he's not the alien.
He's probably somebody
Get my
in the
point?
military. Yeah.
So he's one of the ones that made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured them.
Hmm.
And all they wanted to know was, they picked up my senior investigator, my senior investigator, who was an engineer, and he said, it's really interesting how they do things, Derrel. And I said, I think I know, Dale. And he says, when I walked in the room, instantly, he said, a particular alien was standing, a different type of entity. And he said, and he made all the information available to everybody at one time. And he said, your picture, all the information, everything came up in my head at one time. And the head guy sitting in the big chair, who everybody in that room was terrified of. Terrified is the word. They asked the question. The big guy sitting in the chair said, why did he do this? And Dale was stunned. He said, then I realized at that point, that's why we were all abducted here. They want to know how you did it and why you did it. And I said, sure. I said, because they function like an intelligence community. I said, I often wonder which came first, the chicken or the egg. I said, when I started learning some of the tradecraft in the CIA, I realized, man, this is alien stuff. This is the same stuff they do, deceiving their own kind and, and living in fear and all that. This is insane. So anyway, he said, I told him I didn't know. And he said, he got furious. And he said, I mean, tell you, all the entities standing there in line in front of him were behind me. He said they were shaking because he could at any moment end their life easily. I mean, terminated. That's the society they live in. They don't live in a society like you and I. And us trying to say, oh, they're like us, they're just different. They just have a different body, and that's all. It just ain't true. If you haven't been there, you don't know. You're reading stories. These people are often, their stories are laced with screen memory. They don't know. But anyway, the big guy, even the Nordic was nervous. He walked over. Dale stands 6'2". The Nordic was 6'6", and he dipped down close to him and put his hands on Dale's face like this, and stuck his beautiful blue eyes right up there next to Dale's eyes, and looked back at the big guy sitting in the chair and said, "He's telling the truth." Now, isn't it amazing that the guy who's millions of light years ahead of us can't tell whether he's telling the truth or not? He needs a Nordic to tell him that. And then I'll tell you this last thing. This is important. This will blow you away. This is an old case, by the way. Old case. This guy produced a holographic image of a human brain in front of Dale and everybody. And he told Dale two things. He asked him two big questions before he let him go. He said, "What is Project Prometheus?" Fascinating. That's a military question. That's an intelligence operation question. Why would they be asking that? They know everything, don't they? They're a million light years ahead of. No, they're not. No, they're not. And the second question, he told Dale to point in the head there at the human brain. He said, point to the human soul.
Ah.
And Dale says, but no one really knows where that's at. And the guy got mad again, furious, and dismissed Dale out of the room. In the other room was a lady that I programmed for this whole action, and they had her in the same room doing the same thing with her. And they asked her the same question where they produced a holographic image. She said, I'm going to call it a computer screen because I don't know what it was. I'm going to say computer because that's the only thing I know to call it. And there was a human brain on it, and he told me to point to the human spirit. They wanted to know where it was located.
Yeah.
But they had no idea.
It's in the back of the head and down the spine. It's not just the head. It runs down the spinal cord.
Maybe I'll tell them to get you next because they want to know that real bad.
Oh, God bless them, man. I would be talking oh, my God.
I saw something once,
and getting drunk.
It was about 3 feet long. It was mostly transparent, and it moved.
Then the Central Intelligence Agency, it is about 8 times the size, and I promise you, they can do all kinds of things. They have a budget that's so huge, Congress is not even allowed to look into it. That ought to scare people half to death.
What I'm going to do is I want you guys to watch it, and I'm going to send it to you.
Good. I'd love to see it.
I want it. I don't know.
Please do.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to send it to you guys because it just kind of blows my mind how.
I'll be glad to comment about it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, especially if they get better. Are they showing aliens there?
It's a mock alien. It's like a national alert system, but it actually goes across the screen and is telling you what kind of aliens, what kind of ship, what kind of UFO it is, and it's going across the ticker on them, and they took it off. And I'm
weird. I'd love to see it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it right now because it kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, do it before it gets completely away from you.
Yeah, before I'm gonna forward it to you. I'll forward it to all you guys.
So Derrel, you got the name Alien Hunter. Did you pick that? Did they give it to you? Or how close have you come to catching an actual alien? But where'd the name come from, Alien Hunter?
2 great questions. I was in 1992. I was in 92 or 94. Was in Atlanta doing a presentation for a journalist, and and she interviewed me, and she says, "Wait, oh my God, you hunt them? Why, you're the alien hunter." And I said, I do for a fact. I said, I hunt them that hunted me and later hunted my son. I said, it's one thing for you to mess with me. I'll get over it. I'm a big guy. You come after my children and I will hunt you down. I don't care where you think you're from. And I'll catch you and put you on display. So the second answer to your question is I took my senior investigator, the one that this is sad. The one that was in the mass abduction that got
he got outed.
He gets abducted every year in Colorado on vacation up in the snowmass wilderness. I said, "Gosh, Dale, such a waste not to participate in your event." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "We'd like to attend." So I took 7 investigators up there, all trained by me, and we stayed there for a week. One of them was a captain of a commercial airline, was American Airlines, what it was at the time, and he stayed awake all night long, sitting next to the tent where the bait was, which was my senior investigator, because they get him every year. Every year, he said, and I don't have to imagine that or tell you that. He said, I took a tight end, a Texas Tech tight end football player up there one year, and he heard something in the middle of the night, opened his tent, looked outside, an alien standing there looking at him. Says, get back in the tent. He was an abductee too and didn't even know it, didn't remember it. But he said, I saw Dale being taken into the craft. Wow. He said, I saw it with my own eyes. And Dale never said a word because Dale didn't want him to know. He didn't want to influence him. And the next morning, he looked at Dale and finally said, "They were here, weren't they? They took you last night. I saw them take you," and so on and so on. And so I talked to the guy that tied in later, and when I was talking, his hand kept doing this all the time he was talking. And I said, "You have a phobia?" And he said, "I do." And I said, "I'm very good at getting rid of phobias. Why don't you talk to me about that?" He said, "Well, it's a childhood thing." I said, "Tell me about it." He said, "Well, he said, "This is terrible." He said, "I'm so embarrassed. I'm a tight end at Texas Tech. I have to go, when I get up to go to the bathroom in the night," he said, "I have to look under the door to make sure nobody's in there."
Oh, jeez.
I said, "Why do you think that is?" And he said, "I don't know." I said, "Listen to me carefully. Listen to the sound of my voice." And immediately he went into trance, and he said, I got him to the door, and the problem was he opened it one night without looking under the door, and there it was waiting for him. It scared him half to death.
I bet.
Again, a very rich. It's a rich kid. These are not poor folks who on drugs and whatever. I mean, his daddy's got the money. He didn't want his dad or anybody to know about nothing.
You know, Derrel, you and I should be part of this Pentagon group from a civilian standpoint.
Thank you.
We would drive them crazy because
you would.
I would. Well, the short nose. I'd have so many out of the box questions. They'd commit suicide.
Well, they've done all kinds of things to get contact. One of the things the Central Intelligence Agency did years ago, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, was they actually used people who were skilled in demonism.
Oh, geez.
To contact them.
Yeah, well,
they had some degree
I'll be
of
there.
success.
I want to go there
that.
with you a little bit, Derrel. I got a question here. You see our society changing rapidly the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? Do you believe, and even from a Native American standpoint, that the entities of old, the gods of old, you know, that whatever the natives would they had a god of the air, water, all of that.
Right.
But you had the Egyptian gods, you had the Norse gods in ancient Sumeria and Babylon, Baal, all of those people, the Romans. I've always said that they were worshiping fallen angels and demonic spirits because there was supernatural power there. It all got driven away with the birth of Jesus and the spread of Christianity. It drove it out of most of, at least Western civilization. But you see over the last few years, the far left and the progressives are trying to drive Christianity out, right?
That is unfortunately true.
But what is the result? What I see is a return of those demonic gods that were around 2,000 years ago. It certainly seems like they're coming back, and this country is imploding morally with our belief systems. Everything you ever were told was wrong now is right, and I think it's the return of these gods. And what does that say about aliens? Are they really demonic entities, or are they creatures from some other place or dimension?
It's a great question, really. And anybody who studies the UFO phenomena and does not study the spiritual aspects of the possibilities of this is missing the barn by 15 yards.
Yep.
Because and I talk to, I'm a Christian, and a lot of Christians I know, they really don't know much about the alien phenomena, and nor do they know a lot about demons or anything. I teach a class on angels, demons, ghosts, and angelics, and the different signatures each one of them have. They're as different as night and day.
You don't think that they're fallen angels, the alien
No.
entities?
No, let me give you my short version of it. When you study the alien, you realize that they're hatch, cloned, made, and manufactured by somebody. The question is who? And these aliens mutilate people. I've got cases of human mutilation right here in the United States, not Brazil and other places, right here. 2 children is a good example. uh, uh, they treat you either really good or really bad. It depends on what they're instructed to do. It's that simple. That's not a. It's not. I'm not being ugly or mean here to the alien. I'm just simply giving you the facts of what we find. And I think in the hierarchy of all that we know, and I've studied ancient religions, and I've got friends that are scholars that speak Sumerian, speak Ugartic, etc., and can read cuneiform, etc., a lot smarter than I'll ever be. And we have discussed this at great length. And in fact, some of the scholars came to me privately and said, "We want to know what you know, because you're making sense." And I said, "Give me an example." It's one scholar, he's really a wonderful guy. He said, "I know the chupacabra is real." I said, "Yeah, but," I said, "the problem is you can't find it in the Bible." He said, "That's true." He said, "That's the problem I have." I said, "My friend," I said, "toilet paper's not in the Bible either." It doesn't make it evil or wrong or anything. I said, "The fact is the chupacabra, if you want to call it that, actually is in the Bible. It's in the book of Proverbs." "What?" And I said, "This stuff is real." I said, "I've got one in my refrigerator, and I got a secondary freezer where we keep UFO evidence. And whatever the thing is, I've got one." I said, "He's there. I mean, I don't have to guess, wonder if it's true, or I'm not going to talk to somebody like Jaime Maussan and let him tell me what the genealogy of anything is, because he doesn't have a clue." And I like him. He's a nice guy and all that. But my point is that just because you're a nice guy doesn't mean that you know anything. I've done this work for over 50 years, and I did not start with a quote unquote religious outlook. I started with all these hats, looking at everything from the scientific point of view, from the psychological point of view. I took all the other avenues first. I figured this is probably going to lead to where I've come today, and it has. And the fact is, you can't ignore it. And to use the words of Dr. Jacques Vallée, who is not a Christian, he said, when you look at these so-called surgeries done on some of these abductees, it is similar to things that were done in the 12th and 13th century by demonic spirits. That's his statement, not mine. John Keel, he said, these are ultra-terrestrials. He said, there's something else going on. The problem, like this scholar had, is he can't make the connections because this is going to sound awful, and I don't mean it to sound this way. You don't want to let your religion or your religious views, which may be limited, to define all of reality for you, because you don't know. It doesn't mean that the Bible and things like that aren't true. I think they are. But if you don't know much about it, how in the world are you some kind of an expert? I mean, I don't get that. Well, I believe in the Bible, or I believe in Sumerian, I believe in Sitchin, so therefore everything they say is correct. Sitchin was proven to be a 100% liar. He doesn't even know Sumerian.
Yeah, he misinterpreted he misinterpreted all of the cuniform symbols.
Either he did that
accidentally.
He accidentally made that mistake, or he did it on purpose.
Right.
Now, if he did it as an accident, he's not a Sumerian scholar. I actually got Art Bell to agree to bring Sitchin and Dr. Mike Heiser, another Sumerian scholar, on the radio together on Art Bell program. You know what Sitchin's crew said? That'll never happen. We'll never allow him to go on there. Well, why would you not do that when you're going to have a proctor that you both agree with?
Yeah. Michael Heiser would eat him alive
for lunch easily.
Yeah. And he's not doing too well right now.
No, he's very, very sick. He may pass within a week or two. God bless him. He's a wonderful man. Wonderful man.
Yeah, I've asked him so many questions that he's answered.
The point is that, from my perspective, to answer the young lady's question here, out of respect for her, is that angels, and I'm using a generic term because a lot of people are not going to understand this if we get involved in Hebrew and other languages. Angels, quote unquote, from God, are His family.
Mm-hmm.
Angels are the family of God.
Mhm.
The fallen angels are the family of God.
Thank you.
They
Thank
fell,
you.
but they all were the family of God.
Right.
All of them were. They fell. I agree with all that. I get it. I totally understand that. But I'm telling you, whenever my 9 events, I was abducted approximately 9 times. The last event was number 10. What came into my room, I've never described them to anyone for a lot of reasons, because people always say, just tell me, I won't tell anybody. It'll be on the internet in 10 minutes. Then I'll have everybody in the world writing, oh yeah, me too. I experienced that, but a lot bigger and better. And I'm not interested. And it's one, I've had a half dozen people walk up to me at conferences and say, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly. Oh, they were on a long table in white uniforms and a long white hair. And I said, you've been watching too much Star Trek stuff. I said, you're not even close. If you had been better just to make it up and guessed. I said, the fact is, I said, there were 5 of them. There were 3 different entities. And I promise you, they were not there friendly, and they were not there to take me on the spaceship to see Zeta Reticuli.
Derrel, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We got to get to Giants before we run out.
Yeah.
Okay, don't let me forget that. You're going to like
All
this.
right.
15 minutes.
We have 15 minutes. Relax, John. We're going to talk. No, it's my turn.
Yeah.
I'll just let y'all have the floor for a long time.
Hurry.
No, maybe I'll just take my time. But no, Derrel.
Yes, sir.
When aliens abduct people, are they a certain type of person, or are they just random?
I sure like your questions. I really like your questions.
Thank you.
There are 6 reasons the alien takes you, in my opinion. At least 6 reasons. I'm going to set this down here. I had to move because I was running out of battery, so I had to plug in again. There are 6 reasons the alien take you. They may have take you for 1,000 reasons, but there are 6 I'm comfortable with. I'll give it to you in 3 sets of 2s. The first 2 is spiritual and psychical. Now, let me clarify that crystal clear here. They're not interested in how psychic or how spiritual you are. They could care less. They don't care if you're Billy Graham. They don't care if you're Gene Dixon. They don't care. What they are interested in, and if you're into this, into hardcore research about UFOs and this phenomenon, consciousness, then you already know some of this, or you suspect it. They're interested in, if you fall in the category of either spiritual, unusual spiritual, or psychical ability. I'm not talking about you're a psychic, or I'm not saying how good you are. They don't care how good you are. They care. The thing they notice about you is that you don't process like other people in spiritual or psychical things. You don't. The second group, the people who are science and technical, is the second group of 2. These people learn or pick up things amazingly fast, sometimes without even being taught. And they don't care how smart you are. It's not your IQ. They don't care about that. We've got my senior investigator, Dale, has got an IQ genius. No question about that. They don't care about him. They can care less. They don't care. It's the fact you process differently than other people, even different than psychics and spiritual people, and you process differently than the science and technical. And one of my friends is an abductee. One of them removed an implant from first 2 surgeries. He said, well, there ain't nothing special about me. He looked like Grizzly Adams with this big overalls and everything on, a big, huge beard and everything, bald head. And he said, there ain't nothing unusual about me. I said, you go feed that stuff to whoever you want to. You're a computer genius, and you and I both know it. And you're completely self-taught. I said, like I said, you go feed it to them. I know better. I know you. I know all my abductees. I know who they are. The third group is a group of two, which is physical and psychological learned. These are people who learn physical things and or psychological things with little or no training. And there was a Dr. Carla Turner and her husband were present before she passed away back in the conference in Laughlin. And this lady stood up in the middle of the conference screaming, "Prove it! You're a liar!" And I said, well, no, I'm not lying at all. I said, I'm just telling you what we find. And I said, we process differently. And she's, "Prove it!" And I said, well, I have a 3rd-degree black belt. I have a 4th now. 3rd-degree black belt in the martial arts in Shotokan and Goju-Ryu. And she says, lots of people got black belts. And I said, yes, ma'am, that's true. But it's not like some belt systems, like you can pay for your belt in advance and get promoted. I said, have you ever fought or ever seen Shotokan or Kyokushinkai people fight? I said, you might win, but they're going to take a piece of you with them. These are tough people. And I said, I've never had an instructor yet to this day. Well, what else? And I said, I have 2 instructorships in scuba diving. So lots of people got instructorships in scuba diving. I said, I've instructorship in SSI and PADI. I said, I've never passed a basic course in scuba. I said, you have to wonder at some point, how is he doing all this weird stuff? It's not because Derrel's smarter than everybody. That is just not the answer. The problem is Derrel processes differently than other people. And I do.
Do you think maybe because you guys process things different, that you're hybrid of something kind of alien, that you're part of them? No.
But Derrel, how about the fact that we've both been so-called touched by something? Does that change the way you view things or your ability?
Yes.
It opens your mind up in a way. I think so.
We call this the chicken or egg theory. When people get abducted, they become psychic or more open or attuned or whatever you want to call it. Their chakras open or something. Something happens.
Yeah.
And I said, but listen to me carefully. I said, the aliens come a long, long way to get what you have. He didn't come here to look at pond scum. Your scientists call you pond scum. I'm telling you, the scripture says that you're created unique, different. There's nothing like you in the universe. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Now, there may be something bigger and better out there in the universe, but there's nothing like you anywhere else in the universe. And why are they coming here to get us for the last 150, 200 years? Because abduction is only 150, 200 years old. It has not been going on forever. It has not. This program is almost over, and it has failed, and they admitted that. And there's another program coming, and I'm telling you, that one's ought to raise a hair on people's heads. And that program, I don't think they told you about it all, but I think if you probably go to Revelation, you probably will find it. It's another program. And it's again about transgenics. And the prophet Daniel said, when he saw the Antichrist, he said, I saw him, and he had the eyes of a beast.
Mm.
Now, why would he have the eyes of a beast unless he was a transgenic?
Right. Now that's coming. AI, transhumanism, all of that's coming. And it was here 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago. Yeah. But Derrel, real quick, we've had guests on the show talk about the alien abduction and say it's a good thing. Yeah, they've never met an abductee that had a bad experience. Real quick answer. What do you say?
Okay.
Good or bad?
Well, it depends. Depends on what they're told to do.
Yeah.
If they're told to treat you kind and sweet, and that you're Johnny Appleseed, as they call one lady, elderly lady I've worked with, as far as she's concerned, they're the best thing since sliced bread, and always have been. When I worked with her, she said she wanted me to hypnotize her. I said, why? I said, all your life, since you were a little girl, you've been told you're Johnny Appleseed, planting all these little seeds among all the people, making everybody happy. And she said, yes, but I want you to work with me. And I said, okay. And so I brought one of my surgical nurses in, and I worked with her, and something weird happened in her event as she was remembering her events. Her alien, the guy above her aliens, the ones that normally pick her up, he came in. He showed up in her consciousness, and she said, "Oh my God, the blue man is here."
The blue man.
What? Why was he here? He doesn't like you. I said, that's interesting. I used deodorant today. I wonder what the problem is, And anyway, she kept telling me, and I had a guy there named Vladimir Tadzinski. He's an engineer and a physicist, and he was freaking out. He said, "Oh my God, they're here!" I said, "Be quiet." I said, "You're interrupting what I'm doing here. I'm getting to talk to this guy in person, and I've got a chance to ask him some questions. The important thing is you have to ask them questions, literally, that will catch them. Don't ask them about how many planets are."
Giants.
John wants to know about the Giants. He's been sweating it out.
We're almost out of time. We only got 4 minutes.
I got it recently. I did a presentation for a bunch of scientists and other people in Spain and around the world, and they gave me an honorary Bachelor of Science degree as a result for the presentation. It was on specifically implants, but on a medical level. Anyway, long story short, I told the cardiovascular surgeon that was involved, I said, "I'm going to need you, and I would like for you to go on an expedition with me. I'm trying to raise the funds to do it." I said, I've always wanted to find the bones of a giant. I found one. I said, but I don't mean 8 or 9 feet tall.
Okay.
We're talking 7 meters. Like in the biblical story, we were as grasshoppers in their sight. That sort of giant. The biblical version, the big guys. And I said, I need you because I intend to bring some of the DNA back, and then we're going to do some DNA work on it. I think that we'll find the DNA, the mitochondrial DNA will be human woman, because that's what Scripture says it is.
Right.
And second, we're going to find that the nuclear DNA, the male DNA, is something not of this world. And not anywhere else in the world either.
Nephilim is what they are.
Well, that's the minimum. Minimum standard. Trust me, there are things out there far bigger and higher than that. Far bigger.
Fascinating.
This is awesome. Can you
It's
come
a
back
great
on
show.
the show again? Yeah. Can you come back on the show?
I'd come back anytime you want me. John's got my number. He threatens me all the time. I'm kidding. He's going to beat me up if I don't come on.
He gave me a star from the Texas Rangers.
I did. You're official Texan now.
I'm a Texas Ranger.
You're an official Texas guy, so you can come Texas anytime you want.
All right. I used to live in Oklahoma. I wasn't far away.
Well, Oklahoma's nearly as good. All my relatives live in Oklahoma. The ones that hadn't been hung yet.
The ex-wives.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for being on, Derrel.
I'm delighted to be here.
Show.
You guys have got great questions. You're smart. You're intelligent. You dig. And I love these type of interviews. I really do.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being on Chasing Prophecy. You have a great night.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Derrel. See you.
Wow, that was great.
Oh my God!
He's a good guest.
Yeah, it was a good guest.
Ones.
Absolutely, it was a fantastic guest.
I got another one I should have asked a while ago. I'm good friends with Linda Napolitano. She was the girl, Linda Corteil, from the Brooklyn Bridge abduction that was seen by people, seen by the head of the UN and all of that back in Brooklyn. I guess in the 60s or 70s it was. She was abducted from an apartment, and they saw her levitate out into a craft. And the head of the Javier Perez Cuellar saw it with his bodyguard. It's a hell of a story. We could get her on.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, it was very. I mean, we could have sat and talked more about his hats and everything. Yeah. I just can't understand why. How do you get abducted all those times. I mean, and still be normal. I don't.
Well, yeah. Well, so there are people who've been abducted more than that. You know, he said 9 or 10 times. There are people that this goes on and on their entire life, their parents, their kids, their grandkids. That's why I said, how can you say this is a good thing? How can being taken like a slave with no choice be a good thing? And I don't get these West Coast people who believe that.
I don't understand it too. It just freaks me out though, because he was only 4 years old when it first, and it reminds me of my son who had that experience in his room. A light came through the window, and he remembers it to this day. And he has this sixth sense now, and he's like he can read people, he can do tarot readings, and he's a physician. It just creeps me out. I mean, I don't know. It's just, but watch that video on YouTube.
Okay.
And look what it says. And I wanted to find out, will we ever see that? I mean, if you did, how are you going to react? I mean, that's what we were talking about.
I was watching a little bit of it, and on the bottom it said it was a simulation.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not real. It's a simulation.
No, it's a simulation. I said, what happens when it is real? If it will it ever be real? That's what I wanted him to, like.
It could, my opinion, I think it could be. And if it does happen, Jen, what am I going to do?
Yeah, how are you going to react if something like that happens?
I said, you know what, big man, come down and get me. It must be my time. Or else.
But I don't understand how come it shut off. It wouldn't let me play it on here, and it's like I said, it's weird.
The only way you get a message like that for real is if we can't control the narrative and it's gone too far, then everybody's going to see it, like Independence Day, let's say. If it's something that's just a craft out in the desert, they ain't got to tell you about it.
Yeah,
or the water, they're not going to tell you.
Watch the video and let me know what you think. We will talk about it. Well, when are you coming back on the show, John? When are you starting to do
I only got one more week then.
Okay.
The 7th, and then I got to start campaigning on the 14th.
Okay.
Till when,
we'll
buddy?
talk about it next Tuesday.
May 16th. 3 months.
May 16th. Okay, so we got to get this guy back on again. He was awesome.
Yeah.
Honest to God, he was.
Yeah.
He was.
We should have you know what? We should have a 3-hour show.
Oh, no.
He usually I tell you, he has an agent and he gets paid for television and all of that. He don't do a whole lot of interviews.
That's nice that we got him.
Yeah, usually it's only 1 hour, and he did too.
Well, thank you so much for bringing him on. But thank you again all for turning into Chasing Prophecy. Make sure you rewind, go back. We have tons and tons of videos and shows on SoundCloud and YouTube. Have a great evening, and thanks again for tuning in.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
See ya.